I can prove it. Now, if you punch up on the internet, Moseson, this guy's brilliant. This guy's just over the top. He has a whole blog, and he says, listen, anybody print in any word from any other language, and I'll show you how it goes back to English. For example, in Japan,
how it goes back to English?
You write it in English, and it'll take it back to Hebrew, but you can put it in other languages too, and he'll show you how it gets back to English. For example, Japanese. You have the word samurai. S-A-M-A-R-I. You say, what's that got to do with Hebrew? That's Japanese. And you go, okay, what were the samurais? They were like the emperor's guards. They were like the Secret Service, or the Green Berets, you know, the Navy SEALs of the emperor. Well, in Hebrew, you've got Shin, Mem, Resh, because those are the phonetics of the S, M, and the R. And if you put a yod at the end, Shamri, that's the one who's doing it for me. It's mine. But that's, you know what that word means, Shamer?
Yeah, to guard.
Watch, keep, and guard. The first commandment given to Adam in the garden was to shamer the garden. Samurai is, Adam was Yahweh's samurai in the garden. Same exact word. You don't even have to hardly follow. But anyway, Isaac Moseson will sit there and take all these words, and there's 7 basic ways that he's determined. Your tongue kind of rolls R's and L's, so the Japanese and Chinese will take English and they'll switch them around. Koreans do that too. They just do that. B's and P's, T's and TH's, and TZ's from the Zadi and the S, or the Zion and the Z, and these things get kind of shuffled around, and he's been able to follow and map it exactly, these 7 mechanisms. You can give him any word and you go, Durr. There's where the root is. And then he'll say, like, for example, the word giraffe. He says the Indo-European root says it's this word and it comes from this and that. The guy's really funny too. He's got these great little puns and twists of how his logic goes. I highly recommend him, even though he disdains the paleo. In fact, somebody from South Africa, this lady that we're in communication with, she stumbled across his site. I mean, I even recommend him. His name is at the bottom of the chart. And, not this one, you can't see, but anyway, she said Isaac Moseson just wrote this blog, you know, just blasting the paleo, saying it's completely like man-made object and has nothing to do with the divine, that the flame letters were the real thing, and on and on. And she says, what am I going to do? His words are exactly opposite and contrary to mine. It's like, I talked to the guy on the phone a couple times a few years ago, and he said, hey, send me your stuff. It's like, okay. Well, I just now got these 40 pages written. I'm going to send them to him, but there's a few more pages I'm going to send with it, because those 40 pages are just the intro, and the real meat of the thing is what I was going to write after the intro. I'm going to send it to him. I read him a note that says, will you receive this? I said, come in peace. This isn't a matter of conflict and aggression. This is a matter of, like, I really respect you as like one of the best linguists in the entire world. Can I show you this stuff? And he said, bring it on. So it's like, great. So one of the things I was going to do right after this is finish writing this up and send it to him. Because, see, I'm not trying to say, oh, this is me and you should respect me and ignore these other guys. What I'm saying is, these are Yahweh's words. And I know that Shamri and Samurai, I can see that clearly. But I can also see all this other stuff clearly. But if this is what Daniel was told to hide, then if Yahweh, for whatever reason, showed me this, or allowed me to see this, I can't blame anybody else for not seeing it. Because if it was hidden and sealed until a certain amount of time, and for whatever reason, this is the stuff that I see, and for some reason they haven't seen it yet, it's because we need to discuss it. It's not a matter that I'm so great or they're so ignorant. It's a matter of Yahweh is just revealing this stuff to us. And so we should get around and talk about it and say, hey, look, what do you think? Isaac Moseson has got a lot of flack from the other linguists. And he's sitting there and he proves his case. And he's got hundreds of words. Hundreds of words. He has
23,000.
Huh?
23,000.
I was going to say, there's like 26,000 or something in the Red Dictionary of the Word. This guy's just on top.
Yeah.
You know. To boot, he had I think a stroke or something, and he can't even talk very well a few years ago. And he was really struggling. So here this guy's whole life is about this word, the passion, and it's like, he was crippled by that for a bit. I don't know if he's like overcome it or not. But when I talked to him on the phone, he was living in New Jersey, and I think now he's in Israel or something. But I'm saying this so that people say, here's a guy that doesn't agree with me at all, yet I highly respect him, and say, listen to him, buy his book. It's a great book. He just came out with a new publication of it. It's got kind of a yellow cover. It was 6 months ago he came out with it. What I'm saying is, you see these things, and I believe that embedded in this is the key to itself. Now, Rabbi Hirsch wrote a book. It's a blue covered etymological dictionary. He didn't write it. He gave a bunch of talks. I think he lived 100 years ago, a couple hundred years ago or something.
Is this the chief rabbi of England?
I'm not sure.
Because there's a Rabbi Hirsch, we've got his Chumash, but he's from, I believe he's from England, and he's a chief rabbi of England.
It might have been the same guy. I don't know. But
Not like there's only one Hirsch.
Randolph Hirsch. I'm sure. But anyway, the point is.
That was the publisher, Randolph Hirsch.
Oh, no, this is Hirsch, not Hirsch.
Oh, yes.
Anyway, the point is, he wrote things and gave talks, and somebody else, after his death, went through and compiled an etymological dictionary using every three-letter verb root in Hebrew. There's not that many, it's a limited count. So they took every verb root that he had studied, and they compiled it and put it, in alphabetical order. And you read some of his stuff, and it doesn't agree with this Red Dictionary. It doesn't have to agree. But if you see the Red Dictionary, and you see this pattern, and you sit there and study these things, and then you look at Strong's, and maybe you look at Brown Driver Briggs, you can sit there and say, and then you look at Bullinger, and go, I can see the theme. So here's this other concept. This is the logo of the class that we did. So I had this on a big banner thing, and here's all the letters around these two letters. This is a Samic, the purple, and a Nun. Well, the Nun is the living run, and the Samic is this engineered structure like a support trellis. So here's something that lives on a structured support trellis. Well, that's Yeshua on the cross, you could say. That's also the serpent up on the stick, that if you look at it, you should live. But the word Nun, Samic, you look it up in the dictionary, and it means a sign, a symbol, a miracle, something, a providential event. All the letters in the circle, you can kind of say, every letter, the word for church is the same as the word circus, as Scottish kirk. And it has to do, there was a fellow that was talking about the book of Esther and saying, well, Yahweh's name isn't anywhere in there. It's the only book that it's not. And somebody did a study of the word Achazurus, which is the name of Esther's king. Aleph, Het, Samek, Resh, Shin, Resh, Samek, something like that. Anyway, Achazurus. And he says, it means my brother, the root branch. How does he get that? Well, Ach is brother, and something about Shuras has to do with being a root or a branch. So he very simplistically said, my brother, the root branch. But I did like this whole page of breaking down every two letters, and basically what it means is the central hub from which everything else extends, and all the other things around it find their bearing and reference as, you might say, emanations, but looking back to the center hub, like a wagon wheel, which is the same type of thing as this picture. If you think about it, it's like, besides the fact that it was the king of Persia, that's the church. That's the circus, the ring around the center. That's everything, all the letters around the true center of the letters, which is the identity of Yahweh, which speaks, this is the message of the Messiah. So you could say, Yeshua said, if I be lifted up, I will draw everything to me. So everything coming back around him. But you could say, well, all these other letters, if you try to identify exactly what the letter means, it's not exactly like that. It's like this electron swarm around a nucleus. If you study quantum physics at all, they say you can't take a snapshot and photograph and say, okay, this electron was here, and this was here, and this one was here. Hello. But in quantum physics, the electrons are always in this swarm, and if you could take a photograph, you might find the same electron in 10 different places, or 20 different places. That doesn't make logical sense. This doesn't necessarily fit logical sense, but this was the way apparently it was designed. And if you know quantum physics, they can't prove it, but all the evidence points out. What I'm saying is, kind of like this picture, I didn't have that in mind when we drew this, but all these letters are about what's in the middle, and they're always pointing to the middle, but they're not specifically hard and fast defined. So if these letters are concepts, you almost have to infer what's in the middle. What's in the middle is the truth about who Mashiach is, the identity of Yahweh, and you can't say, I'm going to define him. He's the infinite one. The only way we can define him is by the letters he gave us, which define himself. but the letters themselves are almost indefinable, meaning that they're not static. There it is, pin it. Stab that aleph like a bug and say, yeah, it's an ox head. But ox. Aleph is also all these other things. So what exactly is an aleph? Well, you can't see an aleph, but the aleph is this concept. Aleph is the silent letter. Aleph is the author. So you look at this house, like, who designed this house? We don't know who designed the house. Maybe nobody designed the house. Somebody decided that this would be exactly 4 feet from here to there. Why did they make that 4 feet? Well, maybe because a piece of drywall comes in a 4-foot width, or maybe because you need a 4-foot shear wall. That's what the engineers have determined, and plywood. And if you're going to build this, you could say, well, you put one piece of full plywood on the outside and a piece of drywall here or something like that. There's a reason. The point is, all I see is that this is what's there, and now I have to infer the aleph. I have to infer the... Look at the words that start with the letter A. Artist, architect, author. Entrepreneur starts with the A sound, though it starts with an E, but that's the same kind of notion. So what we see is the bet, the physical manifestation, and we infer the silent author. All we see is his voice manifesting what he's made. Hebrew works the same way. So you can't necessarily pin the aleph down. So, one of the things that we sent to you this morning that I have in here, that I was going to get these made up and have like many more pages, and all we got a chance to do is print one, and it was already way too late at the end of the day. So I have the first 40 pages, and then I have, somebody asked me, a guy in Kenya saw something on the YouTube, said, who exactly is Yahweh and who is Yeshua? Oh, I'll read this.
Yeah,
so
please.
you guys haven't heard this. And again, I'm just trying to put things into clear expression. How would you define who Yahweh is compared to Yeshua? In answer to the question, who is Yahweh, who is Yeshua, what is the Ruach's occupation? What is the Ruach's occupation? What is our obligation? What are the terms of the covenant made between the Creator of heaven and earth and his most treasured possession, his Am Israel, or the people of Israel? What are the true terms of the Scripture's emphatic instruction? This is everything that I was talking about last night. The answer to every single one of those questions is the same, echad, aleph, ket, aleph, which is that the